Fearless is dumb. That word doesn't make sense. Instead, be fearful, allow it to fill you up, act in disagreement with it, take an imperfect action, go around if you have to, but take some kind of action, get in motion, make a choice, say yes, ask for help, do something to get you in motion, because fear wants to keep you still. You've probably heard the name Steven Spielberg. He's a well-known filmmaker. He's made blockbuster movies and quite certainly made a name for himself. But I bet you didn't know about all of his failures at the beginning of his career. In fact, Steven Spielberg's relationship with fear is the thing that strikes me the most as we talk about his story today. In the 1960s, he was applying to get into school, specifically film school. Sort of aware of the vision of his life, he applied to film school at the University of Southern California. They had a school of cinematic arts. Not many people know what happened, though. He got rejected 3 times, didn't have good grades. And as a guy that had good grades and still got rejected from a couple different schools, I can tell you that your plans at that stage in your life really depend on what school you get accepted to. Well, after being rejected 3 times, with his mindset stuck on going to film school, he didn't really have many options. And I'm sure it felt like the doors were closing in on him. Again, we all know where this story goes because we know his name. But he finally got accepted into the California State University, Long Beach, in 1965 and enrolled in an undergraduate degree in English. They didn't even have film as a degree, anything related to that available at the school. The persistence needed to get through that is not what we're here to talk about, though. We're here to talk about fear and this idea that when you pursue something meaningful, like Steven Spielberg did, when you know what you want, when you have a vision for where you want your life to go, and really as a profession, he is a visionary that literally brings his vision to life for us to enjoy, to consume, to watch. When that fear comes up, it's very easy to assume that someone would just either lay down or they would charge through it. And instead, what Steven Spielberg did is what we're here to talk to you about today. He took very imperfect action. He took a completely different route that got him in motion, got him into another school, a very roundabout way, a detour, if you will, and created a life that many of us envy. That process of finding imperfect action when you're afraid, when the doors feel like they're closing, or when the next level seems like it comes with all kinds of challenge, is what we're here to discuss today. I'm joined by the integrator extraordinaire, Marty Noki, as we talk about how imperfect action matters. Marty, welcome. Welcome back.
Oh, it's good to be back. I was just thinking while you were talking, 1982 was E.T. And I mean, I was 10 years old at the time. I still remember going to see that movie in the theater.
Man. So E.T., he's made some amazing films.
Yeah, E.T., Jaws, the Jaws series. Crazy movies. He did the Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Indiana Jones movies.
Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Goonies. Did you ever see Goonies? He was a part of that.
Yep.
One.
Jurassic Park was him.
Yeah, Saving Private Ryan.
Saving Private Ryan. Yep. Minority Report. Even some Catch Me If You Can, which was a con artist film. I think Leonardo DiCaprio was in that one.
Yeah, that was a good
War
movie.
of the Worlds, 2005. I remember that one.
I'm serious. He did Schindler's List, which was a super serious movie.
Yeah. A wide library. And I think what I can appreciate about, this piece of his career is that if you look at it at face value, it just sounds like somebody getting rejected from school. And like that happens 1,000 times, right? It happens with athletes. It happens with artists. It happens all the time, even in just the pure academia sense. But the route around to a school that did not have film is what intrigues me the most. You are then betting really hard on finding another way, on making it happen for yourself, rather than the traditional route of like going to film school and getting picked up that way. And from what I understand, when he was in the school, he produced a short film titled Amblin. I'm not even sure what it is or about it, but I found that it's called Amblin. And it caught some attention of studio executives, and he ended up signing like the first long-term deal. It was like a 7-year deal because they saw his talent in directing something. And he was the youngest ever director to sign to a major Hollywood studio for 7 years too.
Yeah, I was just thinking how different it probably would be in 2025, though. How at that point, at that time, he was that 60s, 70s. Like the college education wasn't necessary. He had to go to school for it, so
He had to do it.
He had to
Yeah.
find a way to get there in order to become who he wanted to become. Nowadays, you probably don't even have to do that to become some kind of film director.
Well, I think about this though. So let's say 70, right? You don't get to build like YouTube shorts to show off your talent. You don't have Instagram to build like a snippet of what you're trying to do. You either get a film and like fight for it, or you don't.
Right.
And there isn't a production open range world like there is now. I mean, you could produce things on your phone, and we know people do, right? There are plenty of people in the content creation world. Mr. Beast is certainly an example, that make content, and then they make content their life. Yep. But at that point, that's not how it worked. Like the world was completely different when it came to media and production and all these things.
Yep.
And when that door shuts, when you hear rejection from the same university 3 times, there's got to be a fear associated with like, is my vision dying?
Well, yeah, and I'm kind of curious, and obviously we don't know the answer. I'd be curious, like, what is that fear of the 4 fears: inferiority, rejection, control, and loss? Like, what was the real fear? Because obviously rejection didn't stop him from
hang on, we haven't introduced those yet.
Well, I know, I just gradually said them, but obviously rejection was not stopping him.
Yeah, clearly was not afraid to like put himself out there. Also was not afraid to go a different path and take, an imperfect path on the way to where he wanted to go.
Yeah.
I think what inspires me most about that trail in the 70s too is that film, to be brave enough to take on a film, you also are leading. Like there's a leadership element in directing a film, because you can see something that everyone else can't, that is totally accurately connected to what entrepreneurs experience, right? You have to be able to guide them on what they can't see.
Correct.
And a director has to master that.
Like in our language, he's essentially the visionary. He needs a producer, someone who can help integrate help bring it to life.
Yeah. Yeah. That is literally vision.
Yeah.
And ends up living. Oh, how fascinating. The pattern that is important to isolate here, and really where I want you as a listener to begin to think and process on, is this relationship with fear that you have. When you aren't quite getting what you want, or you're not at the level that you want to be at, or your business isn't performing to the degree that you want it to, or maybe you want to be home more with the kids rather than working as much as you are, right? You can see maybe the other side. You can tell me what you don't want. You can say the way you don't want it to be. Maybe you're not quite clear on what you want, but you know you're after more. What we're here to talk about today are the fears that you're going to be confronted with when you start to pursue that. Much like what Steven Spielberg had to navigate as he pursued his dream. And the argument that we're going to make here is that your relationship with fear more than likely is causing you to take a significant step backwards, or be stuck in being passive and being inactive completely. Fear tends to pop up and then we back away because we're like, oh, that must not be the right space to go. Or we tend to just set it to the side and say, you know what, I'm just not going to approach the dark unknown, the cave. I'm just not going to go that way. And I think discussing that is really important, because unless you're willing to go into the fear, which that is the definition of courage. You cannot have courage without fear. If you're going to be courageous and step into the fear and pursue what you want more of and the living vision that you have to know what to expect. And you might not know what's in that cave, but we're going to help you today understand what you can expect thematically as you enter that cave.
And it's all levels, right? I mean, it's the person who's starting out. It's also the person who's trying to get to the next level. Like the fear doesn't go away.
Never does. No, man, I used to think you could be fearless. I actually think fearless is a wrong word. You are fearful and you're still choosing to activate.
Yes.
One of the patterns I think comes up when I'm in sessions with clients is that we talk about fear and immediately it's like, well, why are we talking about fear, man? Like I thought we were going to be talking about what we want. And there have been times, especially in the earlier days, where I didn't know how to navigate those conversations the way I do today, where talking about the fear would cause someone to like recoil and they would just back up and back off and say, hey, this ain't for me. I don't want to talk about my fear. I want to talk about what I want. Hey, Aaron, let me do my thing. And now I've recognized and learned that it's probably the most important conversation you can have if you are avoiding the fear that comes from a vision, that comes from chasing more. You are also avoiding the vision. So if you're avoiding the fear, you're avoiding the vision. And to really pursue growth, to really get after what you want, you're going to have to be courageous. You're going to have to fight that fear. You're going to have to lean into it. You're going to have to be best friends with it, because at each level, the fear gets bigger and bigger. They are labeled. We've labeled the 4 of them, but they are always there. And they just like hide in the shadows and remind you that what you want might not be worth it.
Fear is powerful. It can be a powerful deterrent and a powerful tool if utilized properly.
Yeah. To me, it's like the indicator. It'd be like going through a maze and getting a green light. You're on the right path when you're afraid.
Correct. Yes.
That's also how every scary movie is too, right?
Right.
Like, it's getting good. Like something's about to happen when the movie's like the suspense builds in the movie, right? You start getting afraid. Something's about to happen.
Yeah. Do you know his most terrifying movie, Steven Spielberg, I think, was Poltergeist.
I don't know that I've seen that one.
Yeah, don't. Most scary movies are just kind of gory and dumb. That is a scary movie.
It's got to be really different writing a scary movie than like a regular movie. Like, I feel like the mechanics are different,
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the 4 main fears that CEOs face when they finally admit to themselves they want more. And let's crawl through them. Let's identify them. And you and I can talk about how they might show up for us or how they might show up for a listener. The first one, sometimes the loudest one, is fear of inferiority. This fear that maybe I need to bring on people that are better than me. Maybe I need to bring on A players. Maybe I need to bring on C-suite individuals who really know their stuff, high talented people with a lot of experience. And I'm not going to feel like the king anymore. I'm not going to feel like I'm in charge, or I'm not going to feel like I'm the best. I think eventually when we want to replace ourselves in the business and chase more, there's this fear of like, man, I'm not, I don't set the rules anymore. I don't set the pace. Inferiority is a big issue when someone wants to chase more. What else do you think shows up in inferiority?
I think the way that I've seen it, even in previous life, that fear, this is my thought on it. Why would I hire someone if I'm just going to do the job myself? Like, I actually have to hire someone that knows the position, the job better than I do, right? Like, otherwise I might as well just do it myself. So I get that's a fear, but that's also just being driven by ego at that point as well. Where you want that person because they're the person that's going to help elevate you to that place where you want to go.
Yeah. There's a hesitation to bring in talent There's a hesitation to yield. There's a hesitation to get out of the way. And I think at a core, right, all those things bundle up to like, no, 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 I want the crown. And if you render me inferior or I'm not needed or not significant, I'm going to face resistance. And even internally, that becomes a contradiction, right? There's like cognitive dissonance, a strife around, well, I want to be free of my business, but I still want to be the king. I still want to parade around and have everyone know who I am. Eventually, right? If you want to get out of your business and out of your operations and onto a better life or onto other things and exciting things, we have people that start nonprofits and missions and do all kinds of work beyond their business while they still own it. They bring in somebody else to run it, and they're not needed anymore. And there is a degree of like, man, was I ever that important? Because you're not anymore. It's changing.
What? And you probably weren't as important as you thought you were anyway. But I'm thinking of the first experience I had when I was a pastor. I was required to have a finance committee, which was good because I didn't know a lot of that stuff. I learned it from them, but it was like they always recognize in the end I can make the final decision, just so as a CEO would. They could still make the final decision. However, because they knew it better than I did, they helped to inform me of what is the best decision for, in that case, the parish, the church, or in a business. They're there for that reason, to help you make the best decision.
Yeah. Yeah, to guide and
Yeah,
not, and to do that
correct,
requires you to surrender a little bit to that.
correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love that.
because you don't know it all, like and nor should you be expected to know it all.
It is scary, and I think requires a different kind of leadership to hire someone that's better than you at anything.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
you're no, like, it's easy to get taken advantage of, or it can feel like you're way out of depth. And also, it's the only way to build a life that you want. You just can't do it alone, and you can't do it with individuals that are at your level or below, because you'll never rise. Like, we've talked about this idea of like being around the 5 people you want to be, and you want the average to go up, you better change your surroundings.
And I think, like, I always recognized that this group of people, whoever they were, this person, always had my best interest. They always had the best interest of the business. And as
Nice.
long as that's the case, you don't have to, there's no reason to fear that person,
Yeah.
because you know they have your best interest.
Yeah. A players. That's why you get A players.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
Fear number 2. Fear number 2 is all about rejection. And as you think about rejection, this is certainly no different than the middle school dance. There's a hesitation to go after what you want because you might not get it. One of the deepest fears associated with this that I've found over and over in CEOs that we've worked with is not rejection, like I'm not going to get what I want, or I'm not going to get a yes when I try or when I like try to hire somebody. I actually think it's rooted more in, if I go for this and I fail, what's that say about me? If I pursue the next level and I break down or I can't make it, or I'm rendered unsuccessful, what does that say about me? And it might mean, from a practical perspective, you go to pursue an A player that's got a job already, right? We all know this game. You hire a recruiter, they come in, they interview once, they interview twice, they meet the whole team, and then they're like, you know what, not for me, right? It feels like rejection. It might mean that you go to change your capital structure or change your investment thesis and adjust your buy box or adjust what you're offering, and people don't like it, or you build a new product and people don't buy it. When you pursue the lens through the lens of more, it's going to make you confront, hey, people might say no to this. And that's part of growth. That's part of pursuing it. To get to where you are, you had to already overcome that to a certain extent. And to do it again can often feel like resistance is piling on top of you. Marty, what's your take?
um, this is my personal one, so I can kind of speak to how it plays out, and how I think it plays out a lot of times. Because when there is a fear of rejection, not just because, when there is a fear of rejection, the person who has this as kind of their deeply rooted fear will often make the decision before ever asking I think it is very much connected with a worthy thing.
Definitely.
There's the inferior, then there's the worthy thing. So I'm just going to make the decision that that person wouldn't want to work for me anyway. And essentially you end up rejecting your own, you end up rejecting yourself in the process.
Yeah.
That's how you give into that fear. I know that one because that has been me.
It's the middle school dance thing, right? So I'm not going to ask her. She's
Yeah.
going to tell me no.
Correct.
Like,
So I'll
wait a
decide
minute.
for her. Yeah.
Yeah. I've made the decision without her. And
Yes.
yeah, in a way, here's what I think is critical to assess if you're listening. If you've ever dealt with struggles being rejected, if you've ever really grappled with it, when you are already successful, you have probably become successful so that no one could reject you. Because the more successful you are, the less rejection you get. People want to work for you. You got the money to make things happen. You probably have this power and status in your family. Like, you get rejected way less. I can tell you about it because that was my track. Like, I'm gonna show you guys. Now look at me. You can't reject me. And when you start to climb to the next level where you might be seated at a table where everyone can reject you, or everyone can cast you out, or everyone is mega, mega above you. Well, now you're back at the elementary school table getting made fun of again. Like, it's the same game.
Yeah, you will eventually hit that wall. You could avoid it all you want, but you will eventually hit that wall.
The wall never leaves.
Correct. You can keep moving along. I mean, it's moving the goalpost kind of thing. You can keep moving along, but eventually it runs out and you end up hitting that wall. You just have to.
If you're dealing with rejection as a fear, then our conversation today will have a lot of, will come with a lot of awareness for you, I think, because that one is going to keep you inactive. Particularly, it's going to keep you swirling in your head rather than just going out. So
it's also going to make you a loner.
Yep. No doubt.
I'll just figure it out myself.
I'll figure it out myself.
Yeah.
Claim. Fear number 3. Fear about control. Fear about loss of control, too much control, not enough control. Control is a powerful part of what gets us lift as entrepreneurs. It gets us out of whatever thing you were running from in the first place. That passion for, like, I can do this, I can wield this, I can make this happen, is a great superpower that eventually becomes kryptonite. Because as you're venturing into the next level, as you're scaling and growing and mastering more and more, the more you control, the more responsibility you have, and the more pressure you're under. And for most CEOs that we work with, they want less of that. I want less pressure. I want less responsibility. The more that I want is more travel, more adventure, more fun, more time with family, all this. And everybody needs me. Everybody needs me and my energy and my focus. And the handlebar grip gets tighter and tighter. The knuckles get whiter and whiter as you, like, try to hold onto your business more and more, and, like, buckle up for safety. Ooh. And it takes you the opposite direction. Letting go of control and surrendering that is an incredible part of getting the more that you're looking for and chasing the life that you want, the vision that you're building. But damn, control is a nasty, gnarly challenge along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for men, I think you would agree on this. The greater fear is losing control. Correct?
Yes.
Because the person who fears getting it is just a very different person. In my experience, because they don't want to take responsibility even for themselves.
Yeah, there can be a hesitation to, like, maybe step into power, right? That I might misuse or abuse the power. But by and large, the people that we're working with and the CEOs that we're working with have already established a sense of control, and to lose it would be scary.
Well, which is the conflict that they create for themselves, because they want the freedom, and yet they want to continue to control at the same time. And how do you manage to have both when they seem to be very contradictory of one another?
Yeah, and And control, this kind of control shows up in a variety of ways. I can recall a conversation with a client where he's like, I haven't done my annual review yet. I'm like, bro, it's March. Like, if you didn't do the review by now, it doesn't matter. Like, but it's my pattern, right? It's the thing. It's the way I've done it. It's the way I've always done it. And that keeps you right where you are, right? The idea that I could go for the next level or something bigger than what I have also forces me to let go of what I currently have. I'm running the meetings. I'm running the objectives. I'm setting the targets. I'm running the goals. Like, you got to let go of that. This is how I run my morning routine. This is where I live. It's like, I want control over everything, but if you want more, you can't stay.
Yeah, and I think it's such a just a weird dynamic in people, because if I want something new, if I want change, if I want this vision to become real, I have to let go of control of what was and what is, right? But
Yes.
if I'm not clear on what the new is, the tendency is to double down on the control, because it feels like I'm losing that, and I'm leaning into something I don't even know yet. It just sets up a crazy dynamic in people.
Yeah, it does. Control might be your issue if you're listening,
But
wherever you're listening.
also, if one area of your life feels like it's out of control, most people tend to try to control something else to make up for that out of control.
It makes sense. That makes sense. Yep, that's me. Yep. I like make sure my house is in great order.
Right,
And I'm
right.
like, oh,
There's a
I'm like,
tornado outside, but no, that's all right.
well, I'm like, my life is going crazy. I'm cleaning my bathroom. Right? It's just like, yeah, I figured it out.
And there's something to that. I don't know why, but there is.
Yeah, it's maybe human. I don't know. Uh, the message that I also want to hit home here is that control is a subtle, very silent fear. Because you may
Yes.
not even know you're doing it. You're like, no, I just like this.
Yes.
When I used to travel all the time, I would get to the hotel, get set up, man. I'm like putting clothes in drawers, right? It's like I'm in control. I'm in control. And then after 3 or 4 days, I'm like, this doesn't matter. I'm leaving, and I'm only here a week. Like, what am I doing? But it was like I need to make it the way it was at home because I want it to be the same. Because if it's the same, then I'll feel the same or I'll perform the same, etc. Like, I'm in a foreign country. Why am I trying to make it the same as home? Why can't I make it different? But our routines, there's a very thin line between a routine and a control mechanism. And for the land of entrepreneurship that's all about routines, sometimes the best thing to do is to burn it all down and start over. We do this with calendars, right? I love working with CEOs and rebuilding their calendar because here's the pattern, right? The pattern is tweak, 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 tweak. They're like, I still hate my calendar. I'm like, well, you hated it when you started. What made you think that a little tweak, 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 tweak was going to make it good? And they're like, well, but I thought tweak, isn't that how you do? Aren't you a big believer in the incremental change? I'm like, yeah, I believe in the Atomic Habits incremental change law for sure, but not when it's busted to begin with. Sometimes you got to start over. So when we reshift this calendar, we rebuild based on their new vision, the calendar, and everything starts to work towards that. Their EA, their operator, their COO, everybody like, hey, let's make this calendar happen. You and I have done this. I reinvent the calendar like twice a year almost.
Yep.
In doing that, you have to let go of the control of how it was and just redesign from scratch. I'm not improving on what I was currently doing. I'm redesigning from scratch.
I mean, I can give two like general statements about where I would see it. Like, you're clearly a control freak. One is if you're a micromanager, you have a fear of losing control. You just do. The other one is the person where they have set the business up where it can't survive without them. You are addicted to control. You,
Yeah.
they're the two. They are probably the two best I can think of.
Yeah. Yeah. Check in
Because
with me.
I've worked with both of them.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. Yeah. Yeah. Go through me. Make sure it goes through me. There's a
Yes,
time and a place, right? But
I still remember the guy I worked with who was a micromanager. telling me, well, I've seen too many people make mistakes along the way. So that became his way of controlling it, was just micromanage everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been there, done that.
Yep.
All right. Fear number 4. Fear of loss. I can't tell you the number of times this conversation has come up. What if I lose it all? What if it all goes to zero? What if it doesn't work out? I'm like, whoa, hold on. What are we calculating right now? And if you're stuck in this fear, when you're inactive because this fear is popping up, you are calculating things that are incalculable. They don't even make sense. I'll give you an example of this. Somebody said to me recently, like, what if, so he was going to go hire somebody. He's like, what if they don't own up to their promise and I lose $200,000 on the salary? I'm like, first of all, why would you let it go a full year if they're not performing? That's their year salary. I'm like, what you're risking is maybe 90 days, maybe. Put them on a 60-day retainer, whatever. But like you're calculating something that isn't real. If they go a year without doing anything for you that makes sense in their position, that is your fault.
Correct. Yeah, that's on you.
But we're calculating this catastrophic loss, right? This big
the whole
number.
year that person's cashing in.
Yeah, they're living the dream. I want that job. I don't want that job. I'm just kidding. The other kind of loss is like, my business is going to go to zero. And if you've had a business for a couple of years, if you've been in business a couple of years, it's not going to go to zero. You know how hard it would be to go take a $7 million, $10 million, $13 million business, $50 million, $90 million business and go to zero like in 7 months, in a year? You'd have to make like, you'd almost have to deliberately make all the wrong choices.
Yeah, I'm thinking for someone like that, hopefully someone would step in at some point and
Sure.
say,
Or they would ask for help or something.
Yeah.
There's an interesting belief here, though. The belief that I didn't make any wrong moves on the way up here. It's almost like we disconnect from the pathway here, because the pathway up to success is full of mistakes. You go in and you're like, this is what I want. I'm going to work for it. I'm going to make mistakes along the way, but I'm going to be active, and I'll correct. That's how we get here. And then you get there and it's like, okay, I'm going to rest, which I get. Sometimes you got to just rest and slow down for a bit, reevaluate your priorities, your values, what you want to chase, what more looks like. Cool. Once you figure that out, though, if we help you build a big vision and you're like, ruh-roh, I'm going to get zeroed out if I pursue this, like, that is just inconsequentially false. It's crazy to think that you would just be a zero.
There's no logic to it. It's all illogical fear.
And I think it's like, it's really rooted in like, but I'm going to go back to who I was. That if I fail, I go back to like where I started.
I mean, I have a very different experience of the fear of loss because of the work I used to do. Because I've been at the bedside of hundreds of people dying. And however, I don't think it's totally disconnected from that. And it's still about letting go in some sense, and having a fear of letting go of what is what. Well, I think it's closely tied to control as well. But so my experience of the fear of loss is very different from a business standpoint. Although
Sure.
I don't think they're totally disconnected.
Yeah.
There's still a death that's happening.
Yeah. And as you climb and you build a new version of yourself and tactically organize around that, yeah, you have to confront that change is happening and you may not want that, or that if you take a risk, it could hurt you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still like shedding a layer of skin that you're coming into a new person. So there is a death that's happening in those moments.
Something I hear often is, well, I want more in business, but I don't want to give up time with my kids. And there's this like trade-off that's happening mentally, as if you can't have both.
Right. Correct.
And it sort of reveals a a hook, a link in the chain that's broken, that needs to be mended, because you can build a business and get more and do less, or have more time with your kids, or have more time for family or travel. Like you can build it, but you have to know what you want to build, and you have to be willing to risk the building, whatever is needed in the building.
Yes. Yeah, but that's the risk you run when you try to live separate lives. I have my personal life, I have my business life, and in some degree there is a separation there. But you as a person are only one person, and you have to find a way to bridge that within yourself.
Definitely. Yeah, there's no way to grow without risk. And
Correct.
the more you want to grow, the more you want to chase, the more risk you got to take on. And that's just an important part of the equation. And
And I think
that,
as you get older, it does become more challenging. It's one thing to take risk when you're in your 20s, big risk in your 20s. It's another when you're 50, 60 years old.
yeah, yeah, of course. Change is always scary. What we're trying to illuminate for you here is that if you are pursuing more and you're building this vision, like, it might get really loud in your head that you're going to lose it all, and that you're going to go back to zero, or that you're going to end up homeless, or that your team's going to hate you, or whatever it is. But you've got to pay attention to these fears. So those four, again,
Well,
you have
and I think it's good to be mindful that if you keep leaning into that and believing that, it will happen, and then you're going to tell yourself, "See, I was right all along. I wasn't worth
yeah,
it in the first place."
like the middle school dance.
Correct.
So those fears, again, you got inferiority, you have rejection, you got control, and you got loss. And those things, what that's going to do to you is just make you inactive, passive.
Right. Right.
You're going to
You're going to feel
procrastinate.
bogged down.
Yeah. One client said today, like, I'm in the muck. Like,
Yes.
it's just going to feel gross and yucky. And if you're in the yuck, I think the best thing that you can do is label one of those four fears, if not all four of them, and just get, like, let's fucking talk about it somewhere.
Well, yeah, I would. I don't consult us or consult someone, because you'll convince yourself that you don't have it, but that
Yeah.
is not true.
The funny, sort of not funny fear that, or the conversation that I enjoy having is like, I'm not afraid. I'm like, well, then why haven't you done it? Oh, well, because, and then, like, tons and tons of excuses that really layer into these four fears come up. Oh, uh, I'm not afraid. Okay, why haven't you done it? Well, it's just not the right time in the market. Okay, so you're afraid of loss. Oh, well, I mean, it just seems like, not the right time. I'm really busy. Fear of control. Oh, well, but they wouldn't really want to work for me. Inferiority. Like, you can pick this out if you're equipped, and not many people really are equipped to deal with this, but we are, one. And two, when you have someone that's equipped because they know it, they've got to know it. This goes back to our last podcast episode. When you know what that feels like to be afraid and to have these fears, it actually becomes a really positive relationship that you can have when you have help step in and say, oh, it's okay, you're afraid. Let's go. It's all good. It's normal to be afraid.
I mean, do you typically help someone by identifying the story? There is a story that comes with it. There's
sure.
always some kind of story, but the story will help to identify what that fear is. It can also help identify what's an action step I could take in that fear.
Yeah. Well, that therein is the lesson from today. Let's go back to Steven Spielberg. Gets rejected from the school 3 times. As much as he might have wanted to be in the cinematic arts school for University of Southern California, like, they said no. His vision could die there, or he could take imperfect action. And imperfect action is really interesting, because no matter what fear you're encountering, imperfect action is always the answer. It's always the answer, because you can't navigate around anything without taking action, and action requires more action. Information requires more information. So if he was like, ooh, all right, What do they take? What kind of grades do I need to get accepted? What kind of application do I need to submit to get accepted? Like, he would have ended up on the loop of information. I need more info, more info, more info, more info.
Yeah. I'm only laughing because I know I've been there, but I know we encounter that with people we have worked with as well, who, well, I just need more information, more information, more information.
Dude, all the time.
You
All
don't
the
need
time.
more information.
This happens with people on the phone that call us because they're stuck, and they're like, "Can I tell me about the program? Can we set up another call? I'm more curious about it. Can I talk to clients?" We set them up with clients. We set them up with enough conversations, and eventually we have to call out the pattern. Hey, is this a pattern for you? Are you just like hunting for information everywhere and not making any choices because you really are just afraid of something?
Correct.
And
Yes.
if you are regularly swirling around making choices in your business, in your personal life, there is a fundamental problem. You are waiting for the appropriate amount of information to solve an action problem. An action problem is never solved with more information. It can only be solved with action.
Yeah, I think the other way, the flip of it also is, I'm looking for like, I already know what I need to do, but I'm looking for information to convince me that I'm wrong. I think there's sometimes I've done that there's an element of that as well. Like,
because I'm afraid of doing the thing.
correct.
That's
Correct.
just all it is. Still all it is. I'm afraid of doing the thing.
Correct. I'm just saying that there's another way that it unfolds.
Definitely. And I'm not arguing that that's real. I think it is very real. And I know it's real because I've been stuck there too. It's still a fear of doing the thing. And
Correct.
if you're looking for information, again, somebody could call me and be like, "Hey man, can I talk to 50 clients?" And all of them, yeah, absolutely. Connect, go. They could say the most amazing things. "Oh my God, this is a life-changing program. My business has 5X. We've got that story. We got my business has 10X. We got that story. We got people that are like, my relationships are better. My relationship with my kids, I'm more present at home. Got that story figured." Like, we have all these stories. So if that's not enough for you, I can promise you there is not a testimonial on the fucking planet that's going to get you to make a jump into what you know you need. You're just afraid to make the jump, man. But more importantly than even jumping with us, are you not jumping on the rest of your life? Are you not taking action on the things in your life that you know matter to you, that are distinct to you, for you, and through you, because you're waiting for information? I'm willing to bet the answer is yes.
I think you've said this to me. Even as a coach, you can only walk someone to the cliff. Eventually, you got to be the one that makes the jump. You can't jump for someone else. You could just get them there, but at that point, it's their choice to move.
I had this conversation recently. It is not that hard. It is not that hard. I know you're afraid, but it is not that hard. There's a difference. Hard is a certain descriptor of an activity. You're just not, you're not even deciding. You don't even know what it's going to take, but you're not deciding. So
Yeah.
that could be related to us. That could be buying a car. I know people that spend months selecting a car. That seems bananas to me. What car do you like? Can you afford it? Does it have what you want? Well, how do I know if it has what I want? Go fucking test drive it. I don't know. Like, do something, man. It's not that hard. Why are you making it so hard? Just go. Oh, well, what's it like skydiving? Like, I need to do more research. No, you don't. Sign up. I find that when I'm in the information hunt, what gets me out the fastest is a choice. So if I'm like, man, I need a break. Said this recently. I need a break. What gets me out of that fastest is like, put it online, book a hotel, buy a flight. I can always make adjustments later. We had a client that was like, I really want to take my team on like a retreat. I'm like, okay, why haven't you done it? He's like, well, I've been thinking about it for a couple of years. I'm like, well, clearly that didn't work.
For a couple of years.
For a couple of years. So I'm like, okay, here's what I want you to do. Put it on the calendar and email your team today. He's like, whoa. I'm like, but I don't think we're ready for that. I'm like, here's what you're going to do. Tell your team, we're going to have a retreat in quarter 1 next year. It was like, I think it was quarter 2 or something. And on your calendar, put it on your calendar for the weekend that you want to do it. That's it. He's like, that's it? I'm like, yeah. Because now you've got action behind you. It might be imperfect. It hasn't been labeled, but now you have at least done something because they're going to ask you about it. Or in the team meeting, they're going to be like, hey, boss, like, what the heck is this? We're kumbayaing, we're going to roast marshmallows, we're going to get into like an adventure race. Like, what are we doing? But now you have some kind of motion because motion creates more motion. It's a Newtonian law of physics. An object in motion stays in motion. An object at rest stays at rest.
I still think one of the most influential things I did was when we went to the ropes course up in Tahoe and doing the leap of faith, which I think lots of if you're near a ropes course, lots of them have the leap of faith. Because I think there's something in feeling what that's like to do that. Because it does force you out of your head, and you have to take some kind of action. But you get a sense of, oh, I'm not going to die. I'm not going to crash and burn. I might get bumps and bruises, as you will in business. You can get bumps and bruises, but you're not going to crash and burn. It's just taking that one step.
Leap of faith is a iconically fun one to do. It's even more fun to watch.
Right.
because look, you're standing up there. If you've never done this, you'll appreciate this description. You're standing up, you're like usually 2 to 3 like staircases high, right? Flights. You're 2 to 3 flights up. And you're standing on a piece of wood that's like 3 feet wide by 2 feet wide. Like it's really tiny.
It's big enough for your feet.
Yeah, like you can stand on it, you can sway side to side, you can kind of wiggle. You might be able to turn around, but you're pretty much just looking out. And 3 feet, like literally not far, 3 feet from you is a bar that you got to hold on to with your hands. You got to jump off of your little platform and hold the rope. And if you hold the rope, all you do is hold the rope for a little while. And then they like let you swing down. You just like swing on it for 5 seconds. And they're like, okay, let go. And then you swing down. And if you don't catch the rope, if you jump and miss the rope, you drift your way down. And if you
that's what I did. That's what I did.
If you miss the rope, like it's all good. Then if you're on the platform, you can't really get down that way either. So you can sit on your ass and like jump off, like roll off, but it's still like it all. Here's the point. It all ends.
It forces you into a corner at that point.
It all ends the same way. There's no there's another option here. Most growth happens that way, where if you do it appropriately, and this is what I think coaches do, this is what I do, Marty, I know it's what you do. I'm going to put you in a corner. Now, you told me that you wanted the corner, so I built the corner the way you wanted it.
Right.
But ultimately, that's the way out. It's like, look, you can jump, you can leap, you can fall. Either way, we're getting you where you want to go because you told me you wanted to get there.
Yeah, and on the leap of faith, you can't climb back down. It's impossible to climb back down. You have to jump.
You have to jump. It all ends the same way.
Yeah.
Inaction is your solution. And if you're listening, I want you to pay particular attention to the bullshit you're telling yourself over and over and over. Where like you just need to learn more. You just need to ask more. You need to talk to the right person. You are avoiding the thing that you know you got to do because you don't want to do it. And look, I get it. And also, I don't sympathize. I've had to make a lot of choices that I don't want to make. I've had to do a lot of things I don't want to do. I know you already have. There's still more required of you. You have to make the choice. And no matter how long you deliberate, no matter how long you scavenger hunt for the missing key to this door, you don't need it. You don't need any of the information. You can just jump or pull the door open or leap or whatever your metaphor is into the life that you want. It's not going to change because you get more information. Newtonian law of physics. An object at rest will stay at rest. An object in motion will stay in motion. It's just fucking physics. So if you're stuck, this is your time to think about what choice am I avoiding and why am I perpetuating being stuck? And those 4 fears that we just went over will tell you the answer. They'll tell you what you're afraid of. It doesn't make it any easier.
You want to remind them what they were again?
Oh, I'll be happy to. Oh, they're my favorite. Fear number 1, I am inferior, fear of inferiority. Fear number 2, I'm going to be rejected if I go for what I want, fear of rejection. Fear number 3, I'm not in control anymore. It's beyond me. I can't, what if it gets out of control and I can't control it? Ah! Number 3, fear of control. And then fear of 4, what if I end up back at 0 and homeless and on the street? What if all that I've built gets lost? Fear of loss. Those 4 things are keeping you from taking the action that you need. And it's really important that you don't try to be fearless. Fearless is dumb. That word doesn't make sense. Instead, be fearful, allow it to fill you up, act in disagreement with it, take an imperfect action, Steven Spielberg style, go around if you have to, but take some kind of action, get in motion, make a choice, say yes, ask for help, do something to get you in motion, because fear wants to keep you still. And if you have ever been really afraid and you just shake, you know how hard it is to get in motion. And once you get in motion, everything becomes easier.
The one thing I just thought of as you were talking there, of using Steven Spielberg, he never took his eye off what he wanted. He never took his eye off that vision of becoming the director and creating film. So I think that's also a piece of the equation. Always keep your eye on that vision.
And if you don't have a vision, we got you. Send us a note, jump online, visit living.vision, www.living.vision. Send us a note. Let's book some time out. Let's build your vision. Like, stop standing there and saying, like, I want more, but I don't know what it is. Or I'm stuck. I'm not happy. I'm not excited. Let us help you build your vision. You don't even have to do anything. Just get in a boat. I'll row it. But you can't stay where you are. I don't want you stuck. I don't want you afraid. I don't want you to look back on this in 50 years and say, man, that was the time. That was the chance. I missed it. So it's time to take some action. Jump into social, send me a message, jump in online, book a time, whatever you got to do. I'm not going to let you stand there, but you got to raise your hand. I'm just a phone call away. We'll continue to dig into this. If you haven't listened to the episode we've recorded on being blind, go back to that episode. It was the one right before this, because that may be how you're feeling. And know that we can see we're here to help you build your vision, build your business, build your personal life. It's going to be a great journey. But stop being stuck and saying you're not afraid. Stupid. Okay. Whew. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in.